Did y'all have any trouble with Canvas today? Anybody? Seems to be going in and out. Well, that's good. That's good. Maybe it's just on my end. They sent an email recently that said Canvas isn't working, but as long as y'all can get in, that's great. Okay, I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes. There was a worksheet placed up there for strings, so spend a few minutes looking at that, and then we'll go over it, and we'll wait for others to join. Okay, let's look at our worksheet. So it's asking us to write a function that accepts a string and prints each character one per line. So I'm going to write a function, string, and prints each character. Now, if you've done the videos and you've looked at chapter 8, you know that a string is just like any other list of things. So we could walk through string and just print the character. Give it a string. Okay. And there we go. Every one of them on a different line. Okay. Now the next one says that we have this string, and what's going to happen when all of this occurs. So I can access an element in the string. So 5 would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, F, right? And we'll run it in just a minute. -2, remember you can start from the back end. 1, 2, so that should be Y. The length of the alphabet, we all know the length of an alphabet, it should be 26. And if I put one string with another string, it just puts them together, right? So let's run all those and make sure. Yep, FY26, and all of them run together, hello on the end. Okay, let's look at, I think there was one other question. Oh, okay. So we have date string equals this, and we want to put it and print it so that we get year, month, and day. All right, so let me get that. All right. Here's the string. Let me cut that out. So in order to take the pieces apart, the easiest way would be to use split. And I want to split it on the backslash. Now that I have that, I have 3 different pieces in date new, right? This is in 0, 0, that's in 1, and that's in 2. So I want to print the year first. So I'm going to print date new. Well, that's right, they wanted dashes in between it. And then I'm going to print a dash. And then I'm going to print, I wanted the month, that's in slot 0. Another dash. And the year or day. That's in slot 1. Yeah. Oh, I had too many parentheses. Okay, let's see. Date is not the, oh, it's date new. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. So you just want to be able to do these types of things and recognize these types of things on the quiz. Of course, you don't have to code on the quiz, but I could ask you, here's a string. What's going to print if I do this? What's going to print if I do that? How do I break this up? Which piece of code will break this up and print in this format? So you'd have to be able to recognize those on the quiz, even though you're not coding them on the quiz. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we are going to do some of the problems at the end of chapter 7. So we're going to start with number 7, driver's license exam. So the exam has 20 questions. Here's the correct answers. All right. And I've got, we've got to put those in our program. And then they want us to read a file with the students' answers. And I've already got one set up, okay? And then we're going to see how many questions he passed so we know if he failed or passed his exam, okay? So we're doing number 7. All right. So come in and we'll set up a main. So the first thing I need to do is I need to establish the answer set. So we're going to say answers, and that's going to be a list, and that's going to be that was the hardest part of the whole problem. Did we get it all? Okay. So I should have 20, 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay. So there's our answer list. Now notice these are in quotes because they're characters. Okay. Now he's asking us to keep a count of the total correct, the total incorrect, and then a list of incorrect questions. So I'm going to do total correct. I don't want all that capital stuff. And then the incorrect question list. I don't have anything to put in it, but I need to reserve that so I can add to it. We're also going to use exceptions for this. Remember, in the exceptions video, exceptions are put in there to try and catch things that can go wrong so that the user doesn't see a bunch of red bad data like we see when we make a mistake. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get the student's answers. So we're going to read that file. Okay, I've already got one set up, student solution. So let's go look at that. Okay, so there's 20 answers, 1 per line. Okay, and there are some incorrect in here. We're going to read it. Okay. It's a list, and we know read lines will read this as a list of lines, right? So it's going to look very similar to this, okay, except each one of these would have a \n on it because there's 1 per line. So I've read in the students. The first thing I want to do typically when I read in a list of lines is I want to get rid of that \n on the student answers. Okay, we're going to come through. Strip that off. So now what I have in student answers is something more like this without the \n. Typically when we do files, that's one of the first things we do. We read in the file and we take out the \n stuff that we don't need. Now I have that list ready to go and I have my answers list. I need to walk through the answers list and the student answers list and compare each one of them to see if they missed one of these. So I would have to compare one with one, they got that one right. 2 with 2, they got that one right. 3 with 3, 4, they missed 4, so I'd have to mark that somehow. And that's the code that we need to go here. So we're going to come in for X in range. Okay. For each one of these, I want to compare if the student answers equal answers sub X. Okay. So when X is 0, if answers sub 0 equals student answers sub 0, then he got that one correct. So if they're equal, then I'm going to add 1 to correct. Well, so obviously he didn't get it correct. Okay. Now, if he doesn't get it correct, I also have to add the question to the incorrect questions list. Right? Now, though I'm using index X, but this is always starting at 0, right? Questions don't start at 0. They start at 1, 2, 3. So what I need to do is add 1 to get to the correct question. So when I'm looking at question 1, we're really looking at slot 0. So I have to make sure I keep the difference. Now that'll walk through the two lists, and that will keep tabs of the incorrect, the correct, and what questions are missed. All we have left to do now is print. Okay. Now, because I have this try here, I do have to have an except. So the things that can go wrong, we have IO error, the file might not exist. What else could go wrong with this? Well, I could get my indices messed up somehow. So that is an index error. And then if something else goes wrong, we'll just cover it all. Error occurred. Okay, let's see if this works. Oh, there we go. And I do know that there were 5 incorrect in the questions. Okay. And here's our list of missed questions. They missed 4, 9, 13, and so forth. And we know they missed 4 because we looked at that one. Okay. Not too bad. Notice that I always read in with read lines. I always strip, and then usually somehow I've got to walk through that list. Notice that for the try, we only did 3 exceptions. Notice, remember from the discussions on the exception videos, when you just have except, that's the catch-all, right? That catches anything else that could go wrong. What happens if I do this? What happens when I do that? Okay. That wasn't the error I was thinking about. Let's see what it's fussing about there. No. Okay. It should say, and what it's pointing to is that except by itself has to be the last one. It has to be the last message in the error group. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I had a question. So
Sure.
in your video, you had like finally instead of except, and your exception error was like the word exception, and that was in purple. So it'd be like exception, purple, and then that was a catch-all.
Oh, well, that was printing that, right?
Yeah.
If I do this, not there. You mean? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. The difference is the other one just says whatever I tell it to say, like bad thing happened. This actually tells you what happened.
Okay.
So if, for example, something up here I had messed up, I was reading in a bad data or something of some kind, this would tell me, oh, that was a value error. You shouldn't have done that. If I do it the other way, it just says, oh, that was an error. So this is much more explicit.
That makes
Okay.
sense. I
And
just didn't see.
yeah, and it should be last too. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Let's look at where's the book? Let's look at, oh, let's do name search, number 8. So what we have is we have a file of girl names and boy names. I already have those in here. We'll open them up. What we want to do is we want to let the user input a girl name and input a boy name, and we want to find out if those are popular names. In other words, if they're in the file or not. Okay? So let's go off and work on that one. Let me close here. Let me do, all right. So let's just confirm that we have our files. I have girl names, I have boy names. Let's just see what, okay, so it's 1 name per line, 200 of them. Same for boys and girls. Okay, all right. And those are the ones that we'll read for this. Oh, where did you go? Oh, there. Okay. Well, the first thing I have to do is just read in these files. We'll do another try. We'll read in the book first. We want to put it in a list. Okay. Read lines always puts it in a list for us. And then I want to walk, now right now, that list has all those names in there, but it has a \n after every name, and I want to take that \n off. Notice that just about any time we read a file, we take off the \n. All right. I have to do the same thing for girls. Okay, so now it looks like we have everything set up. The purpose of doing this was to read all those names from those files and get each set in its own list. All right. And read lines puts it in a list, and we just took out the strip, I mean the \n from all of them. So now I have 2 lists from those files that I can look in and see if names are in those lists. So we have to ask the user, okay, to input. Enter a boy name or in if you do not wish. Okay. So now all I have to do is just walk through and see if the boy or girl is in the list. So if boy not equal to words they didn't put in and don't want to do anything. All right. What I want to say is if boy in boy names. Remember, we have that nice function for lists that will just check to see if this is in the list. And that's all we're doing. Say boy, the name is popular. Is not popular. I did not come up with these names. This is straight out of him. So do not feel that these are in any way having to do with anything true in real life. I want to do the same thing with girls. Okay, so that gets the main gist of everything. But what I've got to do is I've got to finish off the fact that we had a try up here. So if I'm going to have a try, I've got to have some sort of except for the exception handler. So we'll use the usual IO error. I still have indexes, so I can do that one. Oops. And we'll use the exception one this time. We'll print whatever goes wrong. Okay. Right. So notice the structure. The try except basically encapsulates all the program. Now, and I think it was mentioned in the videos, it doesn't necessarily have to be the whole program. It really is probably only pertaining to this part up here. So I could have put the try except just around it, but for us, we'll just put it around the whole thing for now. All right, so let's save this. And see what happens. I can't see the screen, so let's do that again. A boy name, John. A girl name, Mary. Oh, they're both popular names. Okay, let's run it again. We'll do N for no boy, and for girl, let's use Ruby. That's a popular name. Interesting. I didn't know that. But we said no boys, so it didn't have one for boy. Okay, so that looks like that works pretty well. Okay. Notice it's always read the file, strip it, and then we have to do something with the list. Luckily, we could use the quick in function. I could have done not in either way, however I wanted to write it. And that way I didn't have to do for loops here. Any questions about lists in general for this type of thing? Let's go look at chapter 8, at the end of chapter 8. And let's look at a couple of those problems. Let's look at, programming questions. Let's look at 10. Write a program that accepts a string as an argument and returns the number of vowels that the string contains. It should have a function that accepts A string as an argument returns a number of consonants. Oh, okay, wow. Well, let's just do vowels. If you can do vowels, you can do consonants. Okay, so we need a function. Count vowels. Accepts a string. Okay. So if I'm going to count something, then I need a count variable. Okay, so I want to take this string and I want to see what vowels are in it. Well, I need something to compare it to. Now, I could go letter by letter in a for loop and say, is this A, E, I, O, or U, right? But what we'll do is we'll come up and make a list of vowels. We're going to assume they're all little letters. There's the vowels. And what I want to know is, does S have any of those in there? So we can use the same thing we were using for the other one. If for X in S, for every character in the string, all right, if X in vowels is 1, and return count. The count. And let's just use that. All right, let's see what that does. Oh, if X in vowels, yeah. 9. Well, we put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Absolutely. Okay. So that was fairly easy. So if you're going to compare, it might be easiest, or if you want to find out if something is in another list, it's just easiest to do the in instead of a for loop to walk through every one of those. Okay. Otherwise, I'd had to do 2 for loops to do that. If I wanted to do consonants, I'd do the same thing, right? I'd say consonants. Okay. And I'd have to put in here what the consonants are. I'm not going to put all of that in here, but it's everything except A, E, I, O, U, right? And I'd do the same thing, and then I could print the consonants. All right. So that's fairly easy. Mm-hmm. Let's look at 6. Let me see. We have a text file. They want us to calculate the number of words per sentence. Well, we're going to do it per line. So we have several lines in our text file, and we're going to do the number of words per line. Okay? And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go look at that file so you can see what it is. I've called it text new. So it looks like this. It's got 10 lines of code, and some of them are really long. Okay? So we're going to read this thing in. We're not going to care whether it's got caps or not. It's not supposed to have caps in it. Okay. Or periods. We're just looking at everything per line. That's all. Okay. Oh my gosh. That's what. Anyway, it's not supposed to have all of that stuff. It won't matter to our output. I'm not going to save it that way. I'm going to leave it the way it was. Okay. So let's write the code to read that file and count the average words per line. Okay. So I'm going to have to know, in order to do the average of something, I got to know how many words there are and how many lines there are. So I need a line count variable, and I need a word, I'll call it total words variable. Okay. I'm going to read the file. Okay. I just need to go through the file for line in file. Now, once I've done that, I know that I need to add one to line count. Okay. Now, each line is a set of words, but I've read it in as one whole line. So I've got to take that line first off and get rid of the \n. Okay. Then I need to break up the line. We're splitting on a space because that's how our words are done in the English language, spaces between the words. Okay. Now at this point, I can add to the total words. I have a list of words where each word is an element. All I have to do is get the length of that. And that will give me total words. Okay. So I now have the number of lines and the total words. I can do the average now. Total words divided by line count. Average, or whatever we're trying to print. Okay. And that's true. There were 26 words per line. Okay. Now remember, our file was a little different because it still had some capital letters in there, though that didn't make any difference to what we were doing here. We were just splitting things up. It didn't matter if they had capital letters. Probably the period would have made a difference, but it went with, when it got split up, it went with one of the words. So it shouldn't make a difference at all. Okay. But notice what we did. We had to read the file for each line. We had to strip off that \n again, and we had to split it. Now, I can just about guarantee everything we're going to do with files from now on, we're going to have to do those two things. Take off the n, and we're going to have to split it into something. Okay? Any problems? Anything? Okay? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about homework. Now, for number 2, the slicing problem, I put a sample slicing problem video up. So you should be able to do number 2 based on that video. And we've covered parts of number 1 already. Wanted to look a little bit at number 3. So if you'll recall from the videos, there were 2 having to do with 2D lists. Now, 2D lists look like a table, right? So, for example, if I had something like grades, and then I'd have another one. More. There's a 2D list. It looks like a table. If you remember in the videos, I brought up Excel, and it's the same thing that Excel looks like. This is a row, and then each one of these is a column. Now remember, they don't have to be evenly that same number of things on each row. They can have different numbers of things on the row. Ours just happen to be even, okay, or the same on each row. And when I do a 2D list, I have one set of brackets for the whole list, and then each element in the list is a list itself. So it's list within a list. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to take something like this and we want to write it to a file. All right. What I want to do in main, I want to define this list. Okay. Doesn't have to look nice like this. I just like to be able to see it as the table is. All right. I want to write the file with grades, and I want commas in between the grades. And then I think it said we wanted to average the grades, or want to in this instance, we're going to average the grades. All right. And then, of course, we're going to print something. So that's kind of what we want to do. So let's do write file. It accepts a list. And I'm going to write that to a file. So I'm going to now, when I have a 2D list, when I have a single list, a one-line list, a one-row list, I use a for loop. When I have a 2D list, I need 2 for loops. So I'm going to have to do 2 for loops to walk through one row at a time, and in each row, I have to walk through each element. All right? Because each one of these rows is a student. For each student, I want to walk through the list. Now, the length of the list is 4. Okay? I'm going to one less. I'm going to 87. All right? And you're going to see why in just a minute. So for each one of those, I want to write that element is and a comma next to it. Okay? That's going to get me up to 87 comma. I want to write the last one. The reason I wrote the last one separately than all the others is because it doesn't have a comma after it. There's no comma there. Okay? What I'll get is John, comma, 98, comma, 87, comma, and then it'll come down here in print 76 and no comma. That's why I had to go one less. Okay. Do that, I am then done. Okay. I'm then done with that line, but to finish it off, I've got to do the \n so that I have one student per line. The file will look exactly like this without brackets. Okay. I'm done with every student. You've written the file. Now, if I had just given you the data and said, write this data to the file, then you could have written it in like 3 lines, right? Outfile.write, and then you'd have written all of this, and then you'd have written all of that in the next one. But that's not what I said. I said, take a 2D list and write it to the file. So you would have to walk through the list to do that. Add average grades. Okay. We're going to have to we're going to have to read the file, walk through it, add up this, get the average, and what we want to do is return a list Where in the list, it's a 2D list and it has the name of the student and their average. So if I come in here, I need an answer list because I'm going to return a list. I have to have a spot to save that in. I'm going to open up the file. And we're going to go through our usual for line in file. I need to strip it. I need to split it. And this time we're splitting on a comma. Now I have everything I need. I just need to add up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say the average is, and now I happen to know that the numbers, right, are in data sub 1, data sub 2, data sub 3. Those are the ones I want to add up, but those are strings, so I've got to turn those into float. All right, so that gets me my total. There's the total. And I want to divide that by the number of students. And how do I get that? Well, I mean the number of grades, the number of grades. If I look at each line, the length of this is 4, but there's only 3 grades. So that is length of data minus 1. Okay, here's the 3 things I want to add up. 1, 2, 3. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. And I want to divide it by the number of things there are minus 1, which would be 3, and that's exactly what you want. Oops. Okay. And at that point, what do I need to do? Well, I now have a student to put on the list. So I will append his name. Where's his name? It's in data slot 0. And his average. Oops. Okay. Now notice it says you want to append to the list. You've got to append a list to the list, so it will end up looking 2D. All right. And then you want to return that. Okay. So knowing that that's returned, all right, I'm just going to print up there. Well, yeah, I will. I'll just print what was returned. Let's see what happens. Oh, I didn't call main. That's what happens. And there's our list. John and his average, Mary and her average, and Sue and her average. Notice that it's a list of lists. Okay, and I got that by having a list that I appended another list to. So look at the structure. To write the file, I've got to have 2 for loops because it's a 2D list. To read it in and return a list, I've got to have a blank list to add things to. I have to do my usual. I read the file, I strip it, I split it, and once I split it, I then know what parts I need. And I return the list and I print it. Now, if you'll read homework number 3, this is basically what homework number 3 is, except on number 3, you're just doing sales instead of averages. That's all. So you should have a decent way to get number 3 done. It's the same sort of code. Now notice in number 3, I think you're doing semicolons. Let's see. Oh no, it's commas. Okay, you're doing commas. So you're in pretty good shape. All right. So this will get you going on number 3. Now the homework is due next Thursday by class time. Okay, Thursday by class time. That's 9:30 for you guys. And there are labs next Monday and Wednesday as well. But you have enough to, I mean, I gave you a problem like 2 and I gave you a problem like 3 and we talked about 1. So you should have enough to go on to finish all those up. So the homework is due next Thursday and then the quiz is the next Tuesday. So this weekend I'll post up a review for the quiz. All right. And I will put some videos up for Tuesday, but they won't pertain to the quiz. They won't be on the quiz. Let me put that way. They won't be on the quiz. This quiz is only going to be files, exceptions, and strings. But I'll put that list on the review sheet so you'll know. Okay. It's only files, exceptions, and strings. So any new material that I post this next week won't be on the quiz, but it will begin to prepare you for the 4th homework. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about what we're doing here? Every problem we've done has been basically the same. Okay. When we're reading the file, we always do these things to our file. Okay, we always do those things. Now that you know how to write a file, the writing is always basically the same. It just depends on what you want here. Okay, between them in the file. Any problems? Anything? Are there any problems with anyone watching the videos or anything? Any issues there? I'm just making sure Canvas is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Okay. No problems for anybody. All right. Now, a lot of the problems that we did today will be on the list for the review sheet, but you already have the code because we did them all pretty much. All right. Let me also state that drop date is April 1. So that's coming up next Thursday. So if you want to drop the course, just make sure you do it before April 1 at 4 p.m. All right. Otherwise, you're in it for the long haul, which isn't very much further away. Once we get finished with the quiz 3, we have about 5 weeks left, something like that. That's not bad. All right. And we only have 2 chapters left. Now in chapter 7, we're not going to do tuples or the MATLAB package. All right. So there's parts of 7 we aren't doing at all. I cut out some things that won't matter for your next course. Okay. No questions, no anything? Okay, well, I'm going to hang around a little bit in case somebody has some questions about homework or something. And then, of course, I will have office hours. I'll post that link as well. I haven't posted yet, but I will. Right. And then she'll call out the lab hours for next week, the lab link and everything. All right, well, y'all have a good weekend then. I'll hang around if you need me.
I had a question.
Sure.
So, for your string practice problem, I it says define main, so it's like, do you just take that out and then I don't understand, like, to read the code, I guess?
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. You mean the video for the problem?
Yeah, because I watched that, but it was like your account, n- um, like it would tell you to read it in something,
Yeah,
but for your homework, you're supposed to open something. So do you just switch
that's
those
right.
to open it?
Yeah, all you do in the homework is you just read the file. Yeah. In the slicing example, I had you type it in for input. You're right. So what you'll want to do is you want to take the, here, let me get my screen going here. Let's see. You want to see homework 3, is that it? Yeah, so you're going to create a file, customers.txt, and put this data in there.
So am I going to write the file and then it's going to read it, or?
No, I didn't say you had to write it. I said just create it. Okay.
Okay.
So what you'll do is you'll come in and you'll just do a text file. Let me see, copy that. Come in and do a text file. Whoops, not there. Come into your thing. All right. And say new file and save it as customers.txt.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's super easy.
That's it. You don't have to write it. If I
Okay.
had said write a function for write file, then yeah, you would have had to.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I would just kind of read it in like you did, where it would be
That's
like,
right. Then you'll
okay.
just read it in and you'll do whatever I'm asking you to do. Yeah. So you'll read it in one line at a time, and then you'll do string slicing to get the pieces that you need up here. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
أغراض أشرب بالكيس الأصفر من الشنطة. وين حطيت الشنطة؟
ايش انت؟
اللي جايب فيها أغراضي، أمان المي والعلب، جايبه كان